Hello and welcome to the High Biz Health Podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Udowich. Today we got Bryce and we got Gigi, and we are going to talk about the things that make a workplace suck. Can't afford it, gang. Cannot afford to spend 8 hours plus of your day somewhere that is causing you stress and putting your happiness in jeopardy. So before we jump in, as always, we want to get a quick background on our guest today. Gigi, ladies first.
Oh, thank you. My name is Gigi. I am an HR and organizational development professional. I've been in the career field about 10 years for HR. I started off out of grad school in HR management, and presently I'm an HR director at a small fintech. My education is in industrial organizational psychology, just a fancy way of saying business psychology.
Very cool, yes.
My biggest focus, aside from HR management, is really cultivating great workplace cultures, focusing on things like employee engagement, positive behaviors, leadership training, executive coaching, things of that nature. So that's my background in a nutshell.
Very cool. And Bryce, you, as I understand, you host Craigslist parties.
Absolutely, yeah. Little basket parties. You throw your keys in there.
Yeah, little bit of everything. A little bit of everything on Craigslist.
Right.
And you're the guy who brings the misconnections together as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, actually, I'm a IT consultant, management consultant for a firm here in Richmond. I have about 10 years of IT consulting experience. For the last, say, 8 of those years, I've focused mainly on helping organizations transform their business and transform their IT organizations.
Really cool.
So, really focusing on culture and trying to implement this sense of belonging for your employee. How do we get our business to focus on the priorities, the right things that we really want to work on, and delivering value to our customers and keeping everybody happy that's involved in this thing we call work.
Sounds easy.
Yeah, exactly. Really easy. Yeah, exactly.
All right, you might have noticed that we paid the electric bill. Right. So there's going to be a cut right there, and then it's going to get way lighter, and I'm cool with that.
Nice.
Bunch of ragtag shit going on around here. Okay, so I'm sure there'll be some comedic moments in this podcast, right? Because we're either going to think of or allude to some things that maybe were not ideal and did not lead to the most positive culture. And that'll probably be mostly me just instigating a little bit. Because really what we want to get to today is, what are the mainstays in a company's culture that make it a positive place to work? And let me preface the conversation with this. Every job that we've ever had helped us get to the next place, right?
Absolutely.
So if you can't see the silver lining in everything in life, including this for sure, your attitude stinks and you're part of the problem. And I have been part of the problem in a poor culture, in a not so good culture. You know, sometimes we get engulfed within a certain culture and we exhibit some of those things that help support a negative culture. So I certainly don't want to get up here and finger point and be like, I got a podcast now. It's my chance, y'all no, that's not what we're here for. But hey, sometimes through not the best experience, we are able to speak on some things a little more clearly. So as a guide for today's podcast, we are going to use an article from Joanna Zombas from 2017 entitled 25 Unmistakable Signs of a Bad Company Culture. I think that'll help us lead the way. So before we jump in to some line items on that list, opening statements for what makes a positive culture. What are the cornerstones to a positive culture?
For me, I think number one is giving a sense of purpose to the employee. That seems to be a very big driver in the organizations that I'm a part of. Is are you just giving tasks to somebody to follow your direction? Are you empowering them to make decisions and to contribute to the ultimate value that your organization is trying to deliver? Yeah,
if somebody doesn't feel like you're trying to leverage their talents, then they feel like you truly just don't care about them,
exactly.
Right? Yeah, it makes sense.
Absolutely, I would agree with that, and kind of piggyback on that same topic of just a growth path ahead or options to support your development. In addition to a purpose, some people are looking for that path forward, and there's certainly folks that show up and just want to do the 9 to 5 and punch the clock and go home and take care of their kids, and that's fine too. But I think millennials are kind of stereotyped as wanting development, mentorship, coaching, learning something new, being exposed to something that they otherwise maybe wouldn't have somewhere else.
Yeah, a thick glass ceiling will have people trying to earn their black belt as a fruit ninja on their cell phone, or they'll be all over Indeed.com, right? Like this is what happens when people don't feel a purpose and they don't feel like there's a future there, and those things go hand in hand often. Okay, great opening. And again, gang, the reason we're covering this, you cannot afford to hate your job, right? It's kind of funny, right? Can't afford your paycheck is what we're going to call this podcast. Can't afford your paycheck. You have to be a contributor to a positive environment. And if it's a negative environment that you can't overcome, if you have the opportunity, look to get somewhere that is more positive.
Pack it up and leave.
Yeah, and that's not to be insensitive. Some people are in a situation where they've got to have that paycheck, and there's less opportunity in the present time. But for the most part, you've got to protect your bubble. There's so many stressors in this life. There's so many ways that we can get away from mindfulness and just honestly get in a really, really poor train of thought, and we can't do it. Okay, so let's jump into this list. Our first one we're going to talk about, employees having a sense of boredom and unhappiness. I think we just opened the floor with this, right? What do we have to say about this? And what can we do to get the alignment correct? What can a company do, or what can the individual do to help the company get to a point where there isn't a sense of boredom?
Well, I know one thing that I'm working on with an organization right now is this concept of ideation. And basically what that is as we're going into a planning period for our organization, we don't have just 2 or 3 people locked in the room, and it's very closed-minded as far as what are our goals, what are our objectives, what are our strategies for the year. What we're actually doing is encompassing the entire team and saying your opinion matters. What the ideas that you're bringing to the table, we want to hear them because we paid you and we brought you here for a reason.
Yeah.
And we want to hear what you have to say, and I'm actually going to take that and put that against everything else that we want to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we believe that on that same note, like we hired you, we believe you have the skills to bring something new to the table or something diverse or different.
And there is a direct correlation between employee happiness and autonomy. You hire somebody, you bring them on, then you micromanage the hell out of them, or you just never act on any of their ideas in any way, shape, or form.
With no explanation sometimes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And this kind of trickles over into acknowledgement of things they've done well, right? I mean, I'm sure there's been times where you feel like, the things you contributed were not really recognized. And that is a rough feeling, and it discourages you from putting that best foot forward in the near future. A lot of this comes back to that attitude of, I'm just going to try to find the end of the internet at work today. I don't care.
That's another key indicator that I'll look for, just speaking from like a HR management perspective. Everybody takes a brain break during the day and peruses Facebook or whatever, just to kind of, give themselves a window out for a second. But if that's like the norm and they are just spending most of their time on Amazon or doing whatever, it's probably a little symptom of something deeper.
We should put out a ranking of the different websites out there, and we should measure employees' disengagement by what websites they're going to. Like when an employee is so aloof and so far gone, what websites are they on?
Yeah. Well, I remember at a previous company that I was with, there was actually it's like a, not black market, but like a behind the scenes review site where you could type into like a chat, you're just dissing the company that you're in. So like half the companies in there, man, this is awful. Yeah. It's like, oh, did you see what, Scorpio 123 said? Oh, that's Dave over in QA.
It's like if you're, if you're watching Cinemax on demand and just in your cubicle's wide open, you don't even have sides on. You're out. Late night Cinemax on demand in the cubicle. Love it. Okay. Places that have no flexibility.
Ooh.
Isn't this getting worse by the day? And what I mean by that is more and more people entering the workforce are expecting flexibility. And when it's not there, you become much less competitive.
Absolutely. I hear it constantly in the recruitment world. The hardest thing I have is talking to someone who already has nailed down like a 100% remote role. And pulling them out of that and saying, I need you in the office 9 to 5. Just depending on the company and the work environment, it's very difficult.
Yeah, and it's difficult if that person's had an experience with more flexibility and they're coming into something like that. It could be a tough transition. Bryce, anything on the flexibility? I guess what terms related to flexibility need to be present to support a positive culture?
Well, for me, my particular role is Agile coach. And what Agile teaches us is that we constantly need to inspect and adapt ourselves. So being flexible and willing to take feedback, willing to take a moment to sit and just inspect what we're doing, how we're doing it, is it working for us? And then being flexible on the possible pivot options that you have from a particular idea.
This relates so well to even a much, much higher level of global market strategy. If you're not agile in a turbulent market, your ass is a grass and the rest of the market's the lawnmower, right? Exactly. I mean, it's not good. Not good. Okay, here's one that we probably don't have to mention because it's really obvious, but I think a lot of people have probably had this experience. Office cliques. Ooh. How bad does it suck when it's with the executive team? Oh, yeah. You know, and the executive team is just, buddy, and that helps further distance them from the people over in Cube land.
Well, yeah, because you're in a leadership role. Everybody's watching what you do. They're watching your body language. They're watching what you say. They're looking for inconsistencies, whatever it may be.
I'm not name dropping anybody today. And let me take this time to say I've liked every single job I've ever had, including my high school jobs. A lot of people fall into some rough sledding there.
I don't know if I believe that, man.
I'm taking a second. Does that mean that you had a high school job that absolutely sucked? You can call them out, right?
Yeah, I mean, I worked at the shoe department at JCPenney for holiday sales, man. Yeah,
that's great.
We weren't known for our shoes either. Coming in and just doing like fake snakeskin dress shoes.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Hey, people got country concerts to go to on a budget, man. I get it.
I had a good discount too, so I walked some of them to church sometimes. Yeah.
So the office click thing. Man, that's a rough one. And that's one that I think if you have interdepartment things in the mix, it helps you avoid that, right? Yeah. If you're doing cross-functional work, truly doing cross-functional work, you're bringing leaders and members of different departments together with continuity. And that helps the lines of communication. That helps the relations in the office. And then when you're not doing that, some really bad things happen. It's like a couple that never communicates, right? They never talk. You're going to think the worst. You're going to feel the worst when there's no lines of communication. And the office cliques kind of lead to that.
Yeah, you can do a little forced fun too, whether it's like a company potluck or something and just try to get some cross-functionality there as well. But when things get way too siloed, it can get really dangerous really fast and just really transform into something that's not great.
God, I don't even have to call out my old places of work. This feels good because I'm on a podcast and I'm having the thoughts and it's like, man, and I'll tell you why the other reason this feels good. I've liked every job I've ever had. I've never loved a job. I fell in love with GSI. I can speak with such authority on today's subject because I've never felt so appreciated, so supported. And, I had
that review coming up, Dustin?
Seriously. Hey, Josh Monroe, what's going on, buddy? You're the best. He really is the best. Nothing ever seems to happen and your ideas are not taken into consideration. Let's really focus in on the nothing ever seems to happen. We've all left the meeting where it was a 90-minute meeting and literally there's no action items.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's so frustrating.
We have a meeting to talk about. We need to have less meetings, things like that.
First rule to a good meeting is deciding whether you absolutely need to have that meeting. First rule to a good meeting. So what do we have to say about that? Nothing ever seems to happen. How do we avoid that? And if we're not the executive leaders at the certain level that is pulling the trigger, what can we do to, better contribute to a positive environment?
I mean, I'll go back to my agile kind of foundation here is, just lost my train of thought.
Fuck it. Fuck. Feels good. Just take that second.
Yeah, exactly.
It lands so nice in the mic, too. Just like,
I'm keeping that one.
Might want to open with that.
So what are we doing? Nothing ever seems to happen.
Nothing ever seems to happen.
All right, so I'll go back to my kind of agile background there, and it really takes a point of you want to make sure that you're creating these increments of value delivery, and what we talk about there is you set up these small iterations, and you want to make sure you focus on we're going to commit to doing something and deliver on it. And then we're going to measure ourselves. Did we deliver on it? Yes or no? No, why not? Let's figure out how we're going to deliver better next time. It's this constant evolving of always striving to want to deliver something.
Yeah.
And do something. On the flip side of that, being such a quick feedback loop like that, it drives managers, executives, leaders to start making decisions because they're getting things given to them at such a rapid pace. They've got to start making those decisions at that point.
Yeah.
When you're just laid back and you're expecting something to be given to you once a quarter, once a year, there's no real incentive for somebody to make anything happen at that point. No, I've got time, right?
You know, I was part of a leadership team, and the C-suite joked about this. They used to kind of joke about nothing, you know, we're not moving quick enough. We say stuff and it doesn't happen. And they would there would be side jokes on. I'm like, what? That's us.
Right.
let's do that. Let's do that thing.
What accountability do you have at that point? You know, if there aren't milestones, if there aren't measured deliverables or something to give back on, how do you do anything?
Yeah.
So you kind of have to force that discipline and that accountability, or just at least a weekly check-in to say, okay, here's my week. You know, here's what I'm doing this week. Look at your past week and say, did I do those things? What did I even do? So.
By the way, Gigi, when we went off air a second ago, dropped a huge F-bomb.
Yeah.
Just dropped an F-bomb, and Bryce and I were appalled.
I just wanted to see how it sounded.
Sounds really good.
Lack of respect. You know, supervisors talking down to employees. This is like a no-brainer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this still really prevalent? I mean, there's so much talk around the servant leader. I haven't worked with too many just outright mean people in my day.
I agree with you. I think it's a bit archaic. However, when you're in an environment where things are going so fast, or you have a ton of competing priorities, stress is a funny thing, and ego is a funny thing, and sometimes we'll show up and not be our best selves. And so you just take it out on the person that reporting to you, like, hey, I need this now, whatever it is, and it just creeps up on you. Sometimes you don't even realize it until you're kind of in that stressful moment. So I don't know any leader, any manager I've ever worked with in the past who's like, I'm going to show up and just disrespect the hell out of my employees today.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
But I think whatever life pressure you got something going on at home, you've got a big project hanging over your head at work. I think it's easy to let those things kind of get the better of you, and then you just don't show up your best, and you're putting out that negative energy.
No doubt. No,
Yeah.
It makes plenty of sense.
I'll actually go back to the kind of thought process that I was talking about earlier, and that's empowering your people. So if you have a management structure or management style that all you're doing is dictating out to your subordinates or to the people that are reporting to you, you're not giving them the autonomy, the empowerment there. I mean, to me, that's disrespect, that I'm not being valued as a person.
Understood.
So, you know, if that manager or, you know, that leader, their role now should be shifting to, how do I grow my team? How do I get them to be more valuable for me? So it's really trying to shift the management thought process behind what is my role. My role is no longer to be a chess player, to, you know, move people around. It's to make sure that my team has all the tools and things available to them that'll make them the best that they can be.
And there's levels to this, right? You can have middle management just making poor decisions, and they're not being relatable to their people, and they're not valuing their people. You can also have global structure and executives who are creating a poor structure, which then falls on middle management, which then leads to them sucking for the frontline people.
I'll tell you what, I had an instance with a company that I've worked for here about a year or two ago, and you know, I'm brought in to be the expert in this particular field. You know, they're going through this transformation, and you know, I'm talking to this executive, and he's like, you know, so Bryce, what do you think we should do here in this upcoming quarter? And I go through about a 5-minute spiel on some like a coaching plan that we can go through, a transformation plan, and I could sit there and just look at him the whole time that I was talking, and he was already not listening and already thinking about what he's going to say, not even registering what I'm getting. And I'm sitting here like,
It's basically
Right,
us
exactly.
right now when he's talking. Yeah.
exactly.
Like,
So,
well, it's not gonna be done.
Like I like every like NBA shot clock, I'll like wake up and be like, oh shit, he's still talking.
right. I mean, I was essentially a checkbox. Say, this guy's on our payroll, so checkbox, we're agile at that point. But it was just such disrespect that, you know, somebody brings you in, again, like being hired, somebody brings you in because you can bring something to the table, and they're literally not just comprehending or wanting to listen to anything you have to say.
I could make this a 4-hour podcast on what GSI does right. So at my new hire orientation, they show you the pyramid. It's reversed. So leadership is on the bottom. And they tell you, if you see a member of the leadership team, it is to figure out how to better support you. You're not in trouble. And the values that our company has, protect the family, always do what's right. We drive home these values and say the word family so much it makes you want to puke.
Sounds intentional, yeah.
It's amazing. There's continuity to it. And let me tell you, when I was shopping them, my first thought was smoke and mirrors, right? Because there's such thing as a C-suite culture, right? It's where all your highest ups sit around a table and talk about, oh, these surveys went out and people like it here, right? Like, shut up. Like, are you stupid?
Right.
Are you all the way stupid? Hey,
man, I got to get the Starbucks gift card out of it for that survey, so I'm happy.
I had a leader in a company ask me that once. He just made like a soft comment about, how we're doing here. I knew the people over on the front line. Mm-hmm. I knew the people in Cubeland. Bro, they don't love it. Your pay is not that competitive. Nobody's really happy or enthusiastic. And plenty of people, it wasn't a terrible place to work by any means. It was just super average. Mm-hmm. And by the way, apparently our people, some of the people in the C-suite needed some combine training because they could not make it 30 yards. Like those people who are on the front lines are 30 yards down the hallway, and you never, ever show your face. You just sit in a meeting where you're facing the board telling them how things are up so much. And then you talk about, oh, well, hey, we didn't lose money this year. Oh yeah, your company's killing it, bro.
We're hoping to break even this year. Been there. I've had that nice yearly meeting.
Next year, look at where we're going.
God, it feels good. Feels good. So let's finish up here with lack of communication and too much of a hierarchy. What are the dangers of too much of a hierarchy?
Well, you flipped the switch, man. I was going to lack of communication.
But both. The floor is open for either.
Yeah, I think lack of communication is huge, and that's transparency is really the big thing. And transparency in what we're doing, why we're doing it, what we're doing it for, when we're expecting it, what are the end results that we're expecting, all of that stuff.
And this isn't just really high level.
Right.
You can't be like, you can't be really, really high level and expect that to be meaningful to your people.
Exactly.
Right? There's got to be consistency to the communication, and you've got to connect with your people, right?
You need context as well. I think so often decisions might get made in a company and people are just only hearing the outcomes. And they're like, well, that's stupid. Like, why are we doing this? It makes no sense. But they don't know they spent 4 hours in a room just going through every single risk and every single path. And that's where they landed. And I think that's a mistake if you just kind of gloss over the context behind why we're making the decisions we are.
Yeah. Here's why having too much of a solidified outlined hierarchy sucks. 20, 25 years ago, to be the leader in the company, or really high up in the company, it kind of meant that you had to justify your own position in some scenarios and that you were the expert in the room. You were smarter than everybody else, and that's why you were in your seat. Now, what a great leader is truly, and always was, but now I think it's come to be recognized much more so. If I'm sitting in a room and I'm the high-ranking official in that room, my job is to get the talents out of each person in that room and utilize and leverage those talents and make each person in that room feel like that's the case. It's changed. It's changed a ton.
Absolutely.
Okay. As we head towards a wrap up, why don't we talk about what can you as an individual do to make yourself happy, contribute to a positive environment, and not dread 8 hours plus of your day? Because we can't afford it.
Smoke a lot of weed.
Smoke a ton of weed. Get a job in Denver.
Alcoholism.
Yeah. None of that. What are the things that the individual can do? Because we have to empower the individual, right?
I personally think it starts with yourself, right?
Yeah.
So starting with self-awareness, knowing who you are, getting a really strong sense of this is my truth, this is who I am, getting really comfortable in your own skin, and knowing what maybe toxic habits you may have within
Big
yourself,
time.
whether it's
Yes.
drama, gossip, having an affinity for that kind of stuff, whether it's maybe not always having a great energy in a meeting or not wanting to collaborate with others or withholding information. You got to know that stuff. And there's a couple of great books I've read over time. One is called Real Happiness at Work, and it's got some meditative pieces to it and some mantras. But it's really just trying to get you to focus in on, if you're going to be in an environment, there's always going to be stress. There's always going to
Sure.
be a shitty manager over there. There's always going to be a really tough deadline. And that stress is never going to stop and always going to keep coming, but you can control yourself. And so if you can kind of know your triggers, know how to overcome them, and just constantly keep chipping away and working at that, you're getting
Yeah.
yourself on the right path to contributing to a better environment.
That's great advice. I think knowing how you can best contribute to a positive culture, taking an inventory of that, also taking an inventory of where you can be a negative contributor.
We've all got it.
Yeah.
Somewhere
Oh
down
yeah.
there.
I've been there
And
for
I think,
sure.
I think you got to be an example too. I mean, building on to what you're saying is, being able and accepting of feedback yourself, not
Yes.
just giving feedback to others, but hey, give it to me.
Yep.
This is not a one-way street here, and kind of being
Take it as a gift.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, all feedback is a gift, right?
It's
You
a-
never
it's a-
lose. You always learn, right?
Yeah. An opportunity to get better.
Exactly. So I've seen cultures actually have wrong incentives, which tend to lead to a very toxic culture. For instance, if you're working in a customer service IT organization, so you're putting out a product to your customer and it's customer facing. You have a testing team that's testing the new stuff that's going out before it reaches the customer. I've seen organizations that have incentivized that tester. You're going to get a higher bonus the more problems you find in the system. So they're literally just trying to do anything and everything to come up with garbage or break it or do something
Right.
that is just not productive and not helping. So, I mean, that's just one example of poor incentives leading to a poor culture there, because you're pitting people against each other just because they're trying to get their review to be positive, their incentives to go up
Yeah.
for bonuses, things like that.
And then systemically, you're just chasing the wrong stuff.
Absolutely.
At a high level, you've got people chasing the wrong stuff.
I mean, it's like metrics in an organization. I mean, I'm using Agile because that's my background, but I've seen people report out, oh, we're doing this amazing transformation, and the metrics that they throw up on the screen baffle me. Like, we are flying, we are doing awesome in this. We've started 800 teams and 5,000 release trains, and I'm sitting here thinking, so just the number of sheer volume of people that you've got following your rules, that's success to you, and that's not right.
Yep.
It's how happy is our staff now? Are we working at a sustainable pace? We're not beating them to the ground and overworking them. We're actually asking them to be sustainable, and then we're incentivizing them the right way.
Not to mention, when you only have high level statistics, I'm kind of fish-eyeing you. You know what I'm saying? I'm kind of looking at you sideways like, okay, what does that mean? Because number one, you can frame up a set of data to look like anything.
Yes.
I mean, it's ridiculous. You
I've
could
seen
take
statistics say like 4 different things, and it's the same.
That's
stat,
right.
Right, and I'm like, what? Hold on, I thought it was bad. No, it's good. No, it's kind of good, but kind of bad too.
And the second part of that is, if you haven't connected with the individuals in your organization and you only have the high level data, you don't have all the data.
Right.
You've got to make the connection in both those places. I mean, comprehensive data is great. We need that. We need to be tracking the right things. And we need to give pre-thought to what we're tracking before we jump in, right? Because I think a lot of places do that wrong too. They get rolling with their operations and then they retroactively set up their goals. And that never seems to work out beautifully.
And I think there's value in just knowing what motivates your people too. And I think that gets glossed over, or people may make a decision and say, well, everybody's motivated by money. And so they're going to put a bonus structure in place or up your comp somehow. But maybe that person really values flexibility or
Sure.
time off or something different, or purpose in their work. Maybe they want to give back to their community, and so they would get more meaning out of a day off to go volunteer somewhere. And so not taking the time to slow down and really know your people and know your culture, I think is a big mistake in that way.
Yeah.
Just assuming everyone can get motivated and incentivized by the same kind of stuff, same
Yeah.
kind of
And
rewards.
I think building on that, and you were talking about the hierarchy earlier. I mean, I actually have a positive example from previous experience, right? To talk
I
about.
have a
So-
ton of positives, by the way.
Well,
Seriously.
you've liked every job.
If,
so, yeah.
I truly have liked every job, and there have been amazing people everywhere I've worked. I've benefited from some great leadership in my day. No
Hashtag
doubt about it.
blessed.
What's that?
It's a hashtag blessed.
But yeah, so the executive, I remember onboarding, I came onto the organization. This was before consulting land. And within the first month, part of my onboarding is you're going to go out for an afternoon with the CEO. The CEO does that with every new hire and wants to learn about their people. And like you said, find out what motivates me. I mean, he's asking me, what do you want to do? What do you see us? Do you have any ideas now that you've been here a month? What are some ideas that you have
so
for
different.
us? And I was like, wow.
That's so different than the CEO or the higher up that just takes a lap around the office to check the box that they show their face.
Exactly.
You suck. Don't do it. I mean, it's. I guess it's better than showing no effort at all, but it's not the true connection, and that's a really cool example.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, Bryce loves the Power Rangers, right?
I do.
I made that up. I made that up. I completely made
I
that
used
up.
to call them the Mighty Morphin Potty Trainers, right?
Okay, yeah, that's straight dad jokes up in here. I love it. Let's pull power. I've never seen an episode, so my street credit's a little higher than yours after this past 15 seconds. Let's pull a Power Rangers here. The three of us are going to pull together here because I do want to leave the individual with a feeling that they can control their destiny in a lot of ways, because that is very true. So 3 things the individual can do to best their chances to improve how they feel about their job, to improve the happiness that they're going to get from their job, and to contribute to a positive culture. 3 things. Who wants to go first?
I'll give it a shot. I'll go in and start with number 1, honesty. Being honest with yourself, knowing what you want going into an organization, but also being
Why did we let him go first? That was good. That was good.
Honest with your hiring manager or leadership or whatever. When that CEO is talking to me, I'm not going to be scared and say, oh, everything's just sunshine and roses at this point. Be honest with them, because if they're actually coming to you, they're genuinely looking for your feedback at that point.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same for setting expectations with the rest of the organization. Is I'm going to be honest with what I'm expecting from day one.
Yep. Let's skip around. That gives people time to think, right?
Thank you.
Watch. Don't become overly content, right? Don't just become so dependent on that paycheck that you stop chasing your dreams and your ambitions. If you do have to take that inventory and say, what's going right, what's going wrong, what am I doing right, what am I doing wrong? But you have to protect your bubble in this life. There are so many things that can throw off our mental health and so many things that can be continuous stressors in our life. We have to protect our own bubble, and we have to know what we're doing that's negatively infecting the bubble and what the people around you are doing that could be threatening your bubble. And you have to protect it. You can't ever lose sight of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're so insightful. Like, what do you have?
This is like sage advice right here.
Power Rangers for life, bro.
One thing that comes to mind for me that's really been helpful is like finding a trusted mentor or a coach or somebody probably outside of your company, whether it's a peer in your network, someone who's gone down the career path that excites you, and just use it as a sounding board. And maybe you're the one being kind of shitty about your workplace and venting, and hopefully they can redirect you a little bit and just kind of pull your perspective up to the higher level and say, hey, like, what's going on here? Are you in control?
Yeah.
I just find that very helpful to be able to kind of noodle on that with somebody else.
Let me quickly throw my number 2 in. Mindfulness. Like, this is crazy. It's hard to reach the guys out there, right? The dudes are, it's so hard to.
I'll speak in my deep voice.
With straight Barry White on them. It's hard to sometimes get the guys to be present for 2 to 4 minutes a day. Maybe it's the car ride on the way to work. Somewhere built in your day, and before you go to work, a little deep breathing, a little where are my feet right now? How does my body feel? What's bothering me? And what negative thoughts am I having that could end up playing out in a very poor way at work?
Yes, like what am I dragging in here today? What kind of energy am I putting out in the room?
Yep.
I think that's really important because body language can get away from you sometimes. You don't even realize that you're walking in with that dark cloud over your head.
For sure.
If you are in a leadership position, like people will see that and they're just like, oh shit, what's going on?
Yeah. So true.
Yeah, I'll go with be an example. If you want change to happen, start trying to do it with yourself. Start with yourself. If you have ideas for ways to improve, present them. Don't hold them in. try them, do pilots of ideas. So try them in a very small test environment, and then demonstrate the success to try to grow it from there. But
Yes.
if you expect change, you expect other people to know what you're thinking or what you think needs to change, nothing's going to change. You
I'm
gotta
with
be
it.
that example.
Yeah, assumptions are dangerous.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, take some responsibility for your circumstance, and then have
Yes.
the boldness and resilience to speak up, and then maybe get shot down a few times. That's
Grow-
okay.
Yeah, grow
Yeah.
your pair. You know?
My final one will be chase healthy relationships, and the metrics will come. Chase healthy relationships. Work on those interactions with your coworkers. Really promote that cross-functional work where you've got your hands in different parts of the business, and people are and really promote that cross-functional work throughout your company, and make yourself really accessible to everyone around you, and be a team player. Just be a team player. Don't contribute to a place that already works in silos.
Yeah.
Don't fall into that.
And be a human being. Right?
That's it,
Like,
for
we've
sure.
all got our own lives and our own shit and our own stuff, and life can be really hard sometimes.
Yep.
And having a personal connection and knowing that there's somebody at work that gives a shit that you showed up that day is really important sometimes.
No doubt.
So taking the time to make that connection, to your point, will lead to good performance, will lead to good metrics. It's really easy to not slow down and just kind of gloss over those things and just put your head down and go to work.
Yeah.
But those connections are really, really important.
I've definitely chased metrics to a point where I lost the contact I needed to have with some of my people and felt awful about it. And I've also been at a job where I didn't get a review till over a year and a half in. And so, that can be kind of tough too. And some of that's my fault.
Yeah, because you
Can't wait a
speak
year.
up, right?
Yeah, you think things are going well
Yeah.
because the metrics look great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that everything's great. It tells such a small part of the story. You got one more for us?
Brown knows the shit out of your boss.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like those fake snakeskin shoes that you got.
That's
What was
Stacey
the
Adams or
stores?
whatever, yeah, seriously.
A nice discount.
Yeah, that's right. I would say embrace a life of continuous learning.
Oh, I love it.
Because if
Gigi,
you're-
we let him start and finish.
I know, man. But I think if you're always willing to learn new things, try new things, you're going to be always at a better place at that point. I love learning on a daily basis, and I try to do that. Take something with me new every single day, and that makes me continue to want to come back.
And you know why the two of you are great at your job? Because you love your jobs.
Yes.
You feel valued. You feel like your talents are leveraged. You love your jobs. And hey, I like to practice gratitude at all times.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, GSI. That's my people right there. How good does that feel to get on camera? There's a bright ring light on me and have no remorse about saying those are my people. I love them. I love them. And I love what they're doing. And I love the commitment of our leadership to the front line, which is the heartbeat of what we do. Our frontliners, like with many companies and many firms, they are what's keeping your ass afloat. They are what is making you so profitable. And we take our eyes off them. As leaders, we take our eyes off them. And that is just no good. No good. Hey, huge thank you to Bryce and Gigi. This was very fun, very constructive for our viewers. We hope that you got some great take-homes from it. Signing off from High Vis Health, I'm your host, Dustin Udowich, and we'll talk to you soon.